Hello, welcome replay viewers. How are you? It is Professor Nez, your personal branding coach, LinkedIn consultant, executive career coach. And I just wanted to jump on here because most of you guys know that I've been having a lot of fun with Twitter audio. This is a brand new feature that Twitter and Periscope just released not that long ago. And you know what? Before I get started, I'm going to share this on Twitter. And so it's been really interesting to see the development of what's been really happening and what's been really titled as the voice revolution in the past 12 to 13 months. And having a professional podcast as I do, and by the way, I went last night live on Twitter audio and I talked about this. I talked about, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to share this on Facebook as well. Oops, okay. And so let's actually go right back to Twitter. Okay. So what happened was let's see, swipe down to stop. Okay, there we go. So I'm really curious. I'm really intrigued, and I think that audio is something that more and more people need to think about, and I'm really, really gung-ho about it, and I wanted to kind of test out my actual podcasting mic on here, but I don't just want to come on here and just, kind of have no agenda or have nothing that I can bring to you and give value to you and serve you as my audience. Most of you guys know that I am a personal branding coach, and I help companies, organizations, and individuals communicate their message, develop a core identity, and so that they can get that out there to impact an audience. And so I wanted to give you some advice. I have a channel on YouTube where I talk a lot about personal branding. I talk a lot about digital content storytelling and how you can leverage that for some insane opportunities. And I wanted to just jump on here, and hopefully if you could let me know how the sound is coming through. I've got my professional mic that I'm using this time. I just love this feature. I think this is a terrific feature to really get your feet wet. And if you're new to content creation, if you're new to creating a personal brand, if you don't quite understand the mechanics and how much it really goes into creating a podcast or even a live stream show. Most of you guys, you message me and I get your emails. I love them. I get so flattered by them. You tell me, hey, Nez, how do you do it all? How do you monitor the comments? How do you create such a dynamic show with a guest? And you've got these kind of lower thirds, or you've got, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on IG, you're doing a quadcast. How in the world do you do all that stuff? Well, I do it all myself. I don't have a producer. I don't have any assistants. I don't have any, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, research. It's a lot of understanding, a lot of technical nuances that I'm not a very technical person by nature. So, but I do understand the power. I do understand the power of these platforms, and I understand how important and how much of a necessity this is in the day and age that we're living in. So I'm really excited, and I think now that I see that there's an opportunity to connect an audio device, which I'm connecting my professional USB mic, my mic that I use for my actual podcast and my live stream shows. This is an even more important video that I want to share with you guys. This is an even more important message that I want to share with you guys and my audience, because a lot of you guys, I get your emails, I get your messages, I hear you, I hear what you're telling me. You're asking me, Nez, how do I create a podcast? How do I create a live stream show? This is what I want to do. I want to do what you do. I want to create a show where I can have guests come on, or where I can, talk to my audience and communicate with my audience, but I'm a little bit reticent, or I'm maybe not so comfortable on camera, or maybe, I don't understand the tech involved. Well, guess what? Twitter audio, Periscope and Twitter, those of you who don't know, Twitter bought Periscope. I believe it was in 2016. I'm not exactly sure about that. But Periscope is one of the very first, actually even before Facebook Live came out, And before YouTube Live really became a much more popular mainstream avenue or medium for live streamers and broadcasters. I mean, YouTube Live's been around for a while, but you always had to use a third-party encoder, and now you can go native live through the platform, which is awesome. But most of you guys have been sending me messages. I get your emails. I get your messages. How do I create a podcast show? How do I create, I don't understand all the tech, or how do I get a RSS feed, or how do I create a platform? Do I need a website? Do I need to link it here? Well, guess what, guys? Twitter and Periscope have just paired up and created this unbelievably easy, seamless way for you to create a podcast. And I'm going to tell you what I think would be a optimal way or method of creating a podcast show using this cool tool that Twitter Live and Periscope have just released. I've done about 4 or 5, if not more, of these live Twitter audio broadcasts, and I got to tell you, I'm very, very much so infatuated with it. I love it. I think it's really cool. I've talked a lot about how Twitter is a conversation, and this is a great way to build and leverage networking. I think Twitter is a great place for networking, much like LinkedIn is, although LinkedIn now has become a content creation platform, especially since they introduced native video over a year ago. I have a video on my YouTube channel for that. I'll leave that in the cards. And by the way, my YouTube channel is professornez.com/livestream videos, or you just go to youtube.com/Professor Nez. And so this is a real easy, simple, all I'm doing right now is I'm using, first of all, it's early in the morning. I've got a class I got to go teach. Most of you guys already know that not only do I run a business, a consulting business, but I'm also an actual business communications professor. And this right here, what I'm doing, this act that I'm engaging in right now is modern communications, 21st century state-of-the-art communications. Talk about a way, being your personal branding coach, talk about a way to get your message out there and not worry about how you look, not being clouded by that self-conscious storm that hovers over everyone when they see themselves on camera or in a photo. Talk about not having to worry about lighting, not having to worry about video quality. Honestly, you don't even need a podcasting mic. You don't even need a professional mic. As a matter of fact, I went live, I believe it was not that long ago, where I had a lot of people on my stream. I even was lucky and fortunate enough to connect with the creator of this stream, the creator of this product. Richard, if you're out there, if you're watching this on the replay, great to see you. It was great to meet with you. So if my whole platform, if my whole advocacy is that creating a personal brand is the most important tool, device, action that you can execute to build your equity, to build your credibility, to build your trust, to build your authority. Not just for a business, not if you're just if you're a consultant or a coach or you sell a product, but even if you're just an individual who wants to advance their career. Think about this, guys. Let's say I'm gonna just throw this out here before I get into the how-tos. I really tell a lot of my students this. I tell a lot of my clients, I'm a LinkedIn consultant. I help people. I'm an executive career coach. I tell them create videos, create content, put yourself out there. You never know. We've never lived in an era like this where the reach is so unbelievably easy. It's so unbelievably just seamless and resonant, and it's unbelievable how this video right here can be watched, listened to by somebody who's in Taiwan, somebody who's in Tunisia, somebody who's in Lesotho, South Africa, somebody who's in Australia. There's literally no impediments anymore to getting your message out there. So I even tell people who are not businesses or not, brands or companies or organizations looking to generate leads and make purchases and get sales, even if you want to create some kind of trust and build an audience, you can create your own career. You can create your own job we've never lived in an era that brings us closer together, that connects us in such a viable way. I mean, I just get so pumped up. So, how do you create a how do you create a podcast show? How do you create a talk show using Twitter audio and Periscope audio? Very simply, you can do the same concepts really apply. I'm going to go through 3 things right now. Number 1, I think becoming consistent, getting on a regular schedule is huge. Audiences have shown TV does this spectacularly well. Radio does this spectacularly well. The greatest podcast, the highest ranking podcast in Apple Podcast Analytics, they have a very specific set time that they release their podcast shows. Consistency, timing, scheduling is really, really important. That's a huge part of it. So if you can do a consistent show, and I don't think you necessarily have to have guests. You can, but there's a lot of successful podcasts out there where it's just the individual sharing, educating, informing, serving a very specific audience. So if you're having trouble or you don't understand how do I get guests, which to me, actually, getting guests is really easy because, especially if you're an introvert, especially if you don't like really small, idle chit-chat, which I'm not really a big fan of that either, it's a great way to break the ice and say, hey, if there's somebody you've always wanted to talk to, let's say there's somebody on LinkedIn you've always wanted to talk to, right? But you never had an in. Well, hosting your own talk show, what's a better in than that? Hey, Jeff, I just want to say I've always wanted to talk to you. I'm really intrigued by your work. I'm really intrigued by what you do. I host a podcast show on Twitter. Would you be willing to, we would really appreciate it. I mean, you obviously have to be a human being. We would really appreciate it if you would come on our show and talk to us and share your insights and share your expertise. What a better way to break the ice. So sorry, I'm just having a sip of coffee. I got to go to class pretty soon. So having a talk show schedule where not only can you have guests, and using Periscope Producer, there's a way to use Twitter audio where you could even go live from your desktop. I'm just simply using my smart device. I have an adapter that plugs into my mic, and it's plugged into my iPhone 8 here, and I'm just going live right now using that. So that's the first thing. Having a schedule that's consistent, and you don't even have to worry about guests. Don't even worry about guests right away. You can worry about that later. I say just get cooking, just get going. So that's number 1. The second thing that I think you can do with Twitter audio is to think about what exactly you want to talk about. And don't make it about you. Make it about them. Now, who's them? Well, your audience. I talk a lot about this on my YouTube channel. I talk a lot about this in all of my content. If you go to professornez.com/livestreams, we talk about this pretty much every single week on my weekly live stream. And you can check some other videos on how to identify what's known as your ICA, your ideal customer avatar. But I wouldn't even necessarily, especially if you're just cooking, if you're just getting going, I would say, think about what it is that you feel you have to offer. What problem do you have? What problem your skill set and your intelligence and your experience can actually cater to and serve and solve, more importantly. And sometimes the audience will come just for that, and you'll actually... And another thing, I say this all the time with personal branding, it's a constant tweaking and molding and experimentation. Just get started, just get started. And, I think your very first live Twitter audio could simply be here. I've got a perfect idea for your very first show. Why are you doing this? Who are you? And what do you bring to the table? Very simple. That's your very first live podcast or podcast show on Twitter audio or talk show, is just you basically pleading with the audience, showing the audience, conveying to the audience who you are and what can you bring to the table and what's your backstory. You you got to endear yourself. I didn't mean plea. You got to endear yourself to your audience. Because if your audience doesn't know you, nothing communicates that more effectively than telling your story. Okay? Instead of coming across as infomercially and salesy, tell your story and tell it in a compelling way. That's a great way to find your audience. That's a great way to discover what it is specifically that you can bring to the table even, just by telling your story. It's not necessarily always what are you passionate about, although I believe that you should be passionate about what you're doing, but I don't want to sound too bumper stickery here. Who are you? Investigate that. Discern that. Interrogate yourself. Who are you? What is your strongest assets? What are your strongest skill sets? And how do you think that those complement somebody's problem? Because if you don't solve people's problem, nobody cares about you. You have to understand this. Dale Carnegie said this best in his book, How to Influence People. Nobody cares about you. You have to make them care about you. And nothing excites, inspires more than you telling your story and how it can be relevant to your audience. So that's absolutely crucial, okay? So that's something that you need to implement, and I think that's your first idea. Another way to find other ideas are to look at the people who you feel resonate with your kind of mission purpose or mission statement or your kind of advocacy, and find out what they're talking about and how they're serving their audience, and then sort of, it's more like a link in the chain, kind of being inspired by them. Look at how they're serving their audience, look at the specific types of topics that they're discussing, and learn from that and tweak that, or maybe make it your own, maybe even talk about the very same thing. It's not going to be similar. It's not copying, because you're going to communicate it in your own unique way. So I think that's something that you should think about, and I think that's something it's a great way for you to just get things cooking. My whole purpose with this video, with this stream, is for you to just get things cooking and get going and not get in your own way. And the final thing that I'd like to share with you in this Twitter Live audio, how to start a talk show on Twitter audio, Periscope audio. The third thing is we'll talk about guests, okay? So you can have guests on your talk show. That's totally fine. And with the technology, you can either have them live in your studio or live wherever you're recording. There's so many tools. I'm not even going to get into the tech. Or, you can do it remotely. So you don't have to have them necessarily with you. I use video conferencing tools, and I use third-party softwares that help me to connect with my audience, and then I go straight live, or I just record it. And that's a great way to do it. And the point of my saying getting guests, and notice how guests is the last thing that I want to talk about, because you need to first get going. You need to first understand that this doesn't involve a lot of tech, and you need to first get your story out there, and people need to understand who you are and why they're listening to you. But how you find guests are, the greatest way to do this is to look at the kind of people who you think, after you've identified your audience, this is what I do, try to research. You got to put in some work, research people out there who are serving their audiences, and that their message, their purpose, their advocacy will resonate with your audience. Notice the common denominator here, folks. The common denominator here is audience. So if you can find guests who you think their value proposition, what they bring, their information, their value will resonate and will be relevant to your audience, you will win. And last but not least, you got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. You have to think long term. You're not going to be Joe Rogan overnight. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to have the #1 podcast. You're not going to have 1 million followers overnight. You've got to do it consistently. This is the unsexy side of content creation. It's the blood, the sweat, the tears. It's the constant, you're so tired, but if you don't post on Thursday, you don't post on your weekly schedule, your audience is going to be like, well, what happened to Nez, right? So you gotta, I just gave away my posting schedule, by the way. I post every Thursday and Sunday on my YouTube channel. And sometimes, it's going to happen. Sometimes you're off a day. Sometimes you even skip a week. It's okay. If you skip too many, though, your audience starts to go, whoa, what's happening here? And we're going to go somewhere else. So you don't want that to happen. It's okay to. You don't have to hold yourself accountable to some unrelenting, untenable kind of expectation. And that's really the key to how to go live on Twitter and how to go live on Twitter audio. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to learn more about how to build your personal brand, how to discover your purpose, how to communicate your message so that you can impact your audience and leverage that for your business and your career. We bring you weekly live streams, weekly videos, constantly giving you free content, free information, helping you to get your message out there, which is really important in this day and age. I thank you so much for watching. I thank you so much for listening, more importantly. And I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments. Give me a DM or just comment below. Let me know what you thought of this video. How are you using this? Are you using Twitter audio? Are you using Periscope audio? Are you hosting a talk show? Are you just using this for kind of snackable audio content? This is a great way to leverage for your personal brand. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of Twitter Live audio? Thank you so much, you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll see you guys next time.